And welcome to Deep Discussions. My name is Eliza and today we are joined by Brendan and his mother Pauline to discuss societal attitudes held towards those with dyslexia and dyspraxia and how these attitudes impact them. Thank you for joining us on today's program, Brendan. Now, can you start by telling us, when did you start feel as though there was something different between yourself and what was considered the norm?
One of my most distinct memories was we were meant to write just kind of a short paragraph on something. And when I was in preps, I couldn't actually form words. I knew what the words were, but I couldn't actually form them properly. So I could speak properly, I could understand the words and the sentence structure, but forming the words was an issue. So this paragraph was just a jumbled mix of letters.
And do you remember what your teacher's reaction or attitude was towards you when this happened?
Now, she was very understanding. I think Mum and her had a few discussions about it, and she didn't quite know how to deal with it, because this would have been, I think I was her first dyslexic child, or one that she actually understood was dyslexic, as opposed to what the common conception was, which was they just weren't very smart.
Were teachers mostly implementing inclusive or exclusive practices within the classroom?
Oh, no, there was definitely exclusive behaviours.
Yeah?
But that's mostly just due to the teachers being uneducated and being caught up in the cycle in which they have no idea what they're doing most of the time. They're just trying to fight each fire as they appear. So when a kid who doesn't quite fit the mould or their predetermined structure of education comes into it, it kind of throws them out, and all they have to go off is their own personal experience. And once you're going from, in the case of the teachers, to primary school, to high school, to then university, to learn about going back into school, you don't have an opportunity to see the skills or what other people who might have different learning differences or perspectives or just different points of view deal with it, and how they overcome it and how they can still add to society.
How do you think school communities and society as a whole could be a lot more inclusive of you and other students or people with learning disabilities?
If I had a bit more empathy in the education system for it, because, like I said, we had to jump through so many hoops just to get me to work at the same standard due to lack of knowledge across the board, or the lack of empathy for the situation.
In high school, you were placed in a special assistance program. While the school was trying to help you, did it also create an us and them mentality between the other students?
Fine line that they walk, and it does isolate a lot of students as well, because when you're in high school, it's just more ammunition for difference.
How did these attitudes affect you?
I was always comfortable enough in my ability to do things, and I knew I wasn't stupid or silly as they would have had me believe. And there were teachers that did try and make me believe that I was. Admittedly, I did come out the other side with was a spitefulness towards teachers.
Do you think society and schooling systems have grown more inclusive since when you were in school?
You're noticing a rise in it recently, like you see more and more reports are coming out. People have a greater understanding of it. It doesn't mean they necessarily understand how to apply the knowledge that they have, because just knowing what dyslexia and dyspraxia and all those other ones are doesn't necessarily mean they have the tools to do it, or that they actually care enough to implement anything.
As a parent, did you notice negative attitudes held towards Brendan?
He'd had a lot of bad experiences. He'd been pulled off the basketball court. We'd been told that parents had sat beside Shane and said, "We're going to lose this final because of your son." The moment you have a child with difference, parents are appalling. We got told he shouldn't even be a scout because he didn't have the wherewithal to do that we shouldn't even bother.
And what were the attitudes held at school like?
So he had some pretty appalling experiences being bullied by kids, teachers letting him be bullied by kids, their lack of knowledge and capability. He failed him every single week on spelling and just demoralised him. He had another teacher Brendan was the only kid who never got his pen licence.
Your experiences with Brendan prompted you to follow a different career path. You now work with universities and TAFEs to cater for and normalise these learning disabilities. So can you now tell us about that?
I ended up making a decision to do my career in pathways instead, to help the kids who weren't shooting ducks in a barrel, the kids that could read fast, write fast and remember stuff really well. And I wanted to help kids that perhaps hadn't had the greatest experience at school and coming into adult ed were perhaps a little damaged and broken. And that's how I started getting into e-learning and technology, was because the greatest support and assistance you can give a kid like this is to be able to get them text to talk and to be able to use those pens and to be able to use a computer